بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته, and welcome to Fiqh al-Muamalat online course. And today we'll start the Sharia contract from today onwards, where we'll be taking one contract one by one after we have provided an overall introductions, classifications of the Sharia contract. And today we'll start with the first contract, which is Murabahah. And as you know, Murabahah is one of the leading Sharia contract in Islamic banking. It is regarded the dominant contract in the Islamic banking practices. It is the leading applications in the category of debt financing. And of course, there are some standards and guidelines on this contract and how it is implemented in Islamic banking practices. And it is mainly to basically finance assets and commodities and so on and so forth. So let's start talking about this contract, which is a very important and crucial, as it represents, if you combine it, of course, with the commodity Murabahah, you may say easily over 75%, 80%. In some countries, in some banking, 90% of the contract and portfolios are designed based on Murabahah or a commodity Murabahah. Let's start with the Murabahah by providing the definition. What is Murabahah in the first place? And before that, we have mentioned that Murabahah is under the category of trust-based transactions. And it is also under the sales-based transactions, meaning that Murabahah is a buyer. And as you know, there are different types of buyu, as we have highlighted in the classification in the previous sessions. There are different types of buyu. So one of them is Murabahah, like Murabahah, Salam, Istisna, Bay'u al-Wadi'a, Bay'u al-Hatita, Bay'u al-Tawliya, and others, Bay'u al-Muzayada. These are buyu. So Murabahah is one of them. In the category of Bay'u al-Buyu, we mentioned that sales-based transactions are also a cluster within the buyu, which is based and driven by a trust, where the disclosure of the cost or the profit margin or the discount should be provided to the others in order to conclude the contract. And among them is the Murabahah, which is, as we mentioned, one important contract in Sharia. So Murabahah is a contract. It is coming from the word ribh. Ribh means profit. Ribh. And the Murabahah is a kind of contract where there is a requirement to disclose the original cost and the profit margin. So meaning that you disclose how much is your cost and how much is your profit. Then with a combination of the two, you offer your price to the customers, and if you agree on that pricing whereby a segregation between the cost and the profit margins are provided, so contracted, will be concluded. So it is a very transparent contract, and its form is similar to the conventional loan. That's why basically the mapping of Murabahah against the conventional law has what's called proper matching in the form. That's why penetrations and the conversions of product from the conventional banking to the Islamic was a bit very easy transactions, very easy transitions, very easy mapping, very easy conversions because of the similarity in the form. But of course the substance is different, because in the conventional banking sorry, in the conventional banking, what they will do, provide you the loan, which is a principal, then they will add additional amount, absolute amount, or a percentage over and above the loan as an interest. Then they will offer it to you as a facility. in Murabahah, so the original cost is disclosed, then they will add what's so called the profit margin. So in the form is very close to the practice of the conventional. That's why Murabahah capitalize on that similarity basically to do the conversions of a lot of products and services, a lot of products mainly in the banking sector to be converted in Islamic facility due to the very fast and easy conversions of the product. That's one of the advantages of Murabahah when it comes to a product structuring, design, and innovation. And Murabahah again, it is sorry, and it is again Murabahah. If we go by definitions, it's referred to the sales and purchase of an asset, where the acquisition cost and the markup are disclosed to the purchasers. As I mentioned, so whatever you have, you are going to sell it. You have to disclose your cost and you have to disclose your profit. For example, if this watch or you want to sell it Murabahah, so you have to tell him this cost of this watch is basically from the supplier is let's say $500 US, and I'm seeking for a profit of let's say 2%, 3%, 5% as you wish, or an absolute amount, let's say $150 US. So the 150 plus the 500 is $650. That's my selling price to you. So you disclose the cost and you disclose the markup or the profit margin to the customers, and based on that the contract will be concluded. That's the Murabahah. Now again, it is one of the Sharia contract, as we are going to see and discover in this journey of fiqh al-mu'amalat. We have a lot of Sharia contract that we are going to discuss even in the section of al-buyu'. Now, which one you select is up to you. Which one you select to transact, to transact or to conclude the contract is up to you. You want Murabahah, fine, you want salam, you want istisna, you want muzayada, you want tawliya. So there are lots of contracts. It's up to you which is the convenient contract that may fit the product that you are looking and you want to be offered to the market. So that's why we are exploring all the Sharia contract, then up to the financial institutions in collaborations, of course, with the different unit in the bank and the Sharia board and the regulator, and also what's the selections and preference of the market, and based on that, basically the product will be offered. So in case a product is offered by Murabahah, so basically that's the requirement of Murabahah, whereby the financial institutions, the Islamic banker, normally disclose the cost to the customers in concluding the contract. If you want to buy a house, so basically the bank will tell you my cost of the house is this much, let's say 500K, then my profit is 4%, and this is the installments arrangement, let's say for example 15 years or 20 years or 30 years. If it's a car, my cost for example is 100,000, and my profit margin is let's say 7% or 5%, and the tenure of the installment is 5 years or 6 years, 7 years or 9 years. It depends on the requirements, what's the in the industry practice. So basically the bank will disclose the original price and the profit margin, and based on that the contract will be concluded. That's in theory, but in practice also normally the client will know the price without even the bank disclosing the information, because in the Murabahah, as we are going to discuss, sometimes the client himself will be acting as the agents on behalf of the bank, meaning that the client is the one who's getting the information, getting the quotations, dealing with the suppliers, getting the information, receiving the invoices, and so on and so forth. So there is no what so-called hidden items or hidden pricing or a hidden cost. All are disclosed on the table because the client himself is involved and a part of the operations of concluding the Murabaha. Basically, the client is the one who will bring the original cost to the bank, and the bank will negotiate his profit rate. So all these are disclosed basically, and the clients being an individual or an institutions with like such a mortgage or account financing or even a project or financing goods and commodities, the clients knows the suppliers and knows the costs and receive the invoices. So he's aware about that. The part which could be negotiated with the financial institutions is basically what is the profit margin. So that's how it is Murabaha. It is a contract concluded between financial institutions and the customers, whereby original cost of the commodity or the asset and the profit margin are disclosed. And here in Murabaha, the bank is the seller and the client is the buyer. And of course, later on through our discussion, we'll see the type of Murabaha, the undertaking and other things that will come as part of the package or the facility of the Murabaha. But at this level, we're just talking about the concept of Murabaha and its a definition and structure and how it is understood. So banks is selling to the clients is buying from the bank. Banks is disclosing the original cost, is profit margins. Clients knows how much is the cost and how much is the profit margin of the bank and what is the tenure agreed upon and what is the installments looks like. All these are disclosed before you conclude the Murabaha contract. So this is the Murabaha. The second point we'd like to talk about is that Murabaha is a sales and purchase contract again, which is binding in nature. So Murabaha is a binding contract, and means binding contract is cannot be terminated from one side unilaterally. It should be bilateral agreements mutually agree to terminate the contract, and no one has the option to terminate the contract from one side. So it is a binding because a contract, as we have discussed early on in the previous sessions, contracts are divided into two, binding and non-binding. So non-binding like wakala, like murabaha, like mudaraba. So those contracts are non-binding, meaning upon conclusion of the contract, anyone can terminate the contract anytime. But some contracts, which are exchange contracts, which are binding contracts like ijara, like sales, like al-buyu, all type of buyurs, by their nature they are binding. So once it is concluded, no one has the right from his side independently, without the consent of the third party, to terminate the contract, but the consent and mutual agreements has to be obtained before you terminate the contract. So it is a binding contract. Hence, the contract shall not be terminated unilaterally, as we mentioned, by any one of the contracting party, meaning that both parties must agree to terminate the contract if they wish to do so. The other point is that the specific inheriting natures of the contract of Murabaha is the sales contract, in which is based on the element of trust in disclosing the cost and markup. I think we have highlighted this very clearly. That's one of the very nature and basic concept and element that should be understood in the concept of Murabaha, is that it is based on trust. This is why we call it buyu al-amana. Buyu al-amana, al-amana is trust, meaning that the seller has been trusted in disclosing the cost and the profit margin. So the seller is amin, is trusted. And why it is amin? Because the client has no idea how much is the price and has no idea how much is the profit margin. And the decision here from the client is not based on negotiations, is not based on bargaining, is not based on how smart you are. It is based on the integrity of the sellers in disclosing original cost and profit margin, and based on that disclosure, the decision will be made. So that's why Murabahah is very crucial, and this is make a very clear distinctions between Murabahah and Musawama. Musawama is a bargaining. So you don't know the original cost, you don't know the profit margin, you like the item, you negotiate, do a kind of survey, how much is the price. If you like it within the market price, make your decision and buy it. But when it comes to Murabahah, there is no such market survey. Well, you can do it anyway, but what I'm trying to say is that the decisions is not based on your skills, competency, and knowledge, but it is based on the integrity and the honesty of the sellers to disclose his original cost and price. Then they will tell you, my cost of this is such and such, and my profit is such and such, and based on that you do the contract. You may say, why? I mean, you say in trust he can provide the invoices. Yes, true. He can provide the invoices. He can provide the needed informations in order to conclude the contract. But we are talking about the contract that existed for the last 1,400 years before we know what is the invoice looks like, and before the process of documentation has started, and because all these sophisticated what so-called means and ways to know the price through barcodes, quotations, market survey, internet, pricing list, associations, panel of experts, and just name it. And the news and social media, we are talking about a seller in nowhere, with no internet, with no connections, with no access, with no price listing, with no news, with no social media, with no TV, with no such information that you have it today, will tell you my price is my original cost is this. I just arrived from this market, my original cost, and this is the profit margin I want to sell it to you. That's the Murabahah. So here there is no survey, there is no comparison. It's just a trust that has been what's so called the trust that has been upon what's so called the sellers in making this information available to the clients, and based on that he will make his decision. That's why it is a different bargaining. Bargaining it's a different, based on competency and skills, but when it comes to Murabahah, it is based on trust. That's why, if for the sake of arguments in the bargaining you lie in your conversations and convincing the clients to buy by saying my profit margin is this and this, and you are in your statement lying, but yet the buyer's purchase contract still concluded and still binding and still valid, even that you have lied in your conversations. But when it comes to the Murabahah, if you lie in your pricing, in your original cost, or you lie in your profit margin, the contract will be invalid. So that's the implications of compromising of code of ethics in the bargaining sales, and compromising on the ethics in Murabahah, because Murabahah is based on trust, based on ethics, based on integrity, decision being made not on skills and competency, but it is based on trust. So if the trust compromise, the entire facility will collapse respectively. And as a result of that, of course, when the contract is concluded, so what we have the so the buyer will get the assets, and of course the sellers get the price for it. So that's basically the first brief introductions on Murabahah, and should we carry on our discussion inshallah in more details about Murabahah. With that, thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.